Hey there, this is Malorian, and this is another Paintisode. Now, for those who this might be your first time, a Paintisode is basically roughly an hour. Every Monday I do this, 8 o'clock Alberta time, where I'll sit down and I'll paint for about an hour. And the idea is that you pull out your paints and you kind of paint along with me while we yap about stuff. There's always a post I do the day before where you can put in your questions. But hey, if you're watching this live, you can always put in your questions here, and I'll get to it after. So today, I'm all done all the stuff I need to paint for the painting challenge. So now I am on to Dynamo. So Dynamo is the new character for Signar, and he's pretty cool. Some people are saying that he's super awesome and you'll have to take them in every army and blah blah blah. No, he's not super crazy, but he's damn cool, especially with Nemo. So I'm going to be painting him up like my loud wife up there. And otherwise, I got a bunch of questions that I got to talk about. Man, you tell the wife, all right, I'm going down for a Paintisode, time to be quiet. And she's like, hey, I should wash all the dishes. That's impossible because I wash the dishes. So I wonder if she's just like running the water just to piss me off. Like when your significant other's in the shower and you flush the toilet for no reason other than make the shower cold. I wonder if this is it. Thanks a lot, woman. But anyway, I'm going to be working on this. I'm guessing this is going to take me a little bit more than an hour. If it does take way more than an hour, I'll probably give up and finish it up after. But we have lots of questions, and who knows what other ones we posted as well. So the first one I have here is from X David Williams saying, hello, good sir. I would like to know how many points and models do you think an average gamer might have compared to a tournament player? Do you feel that certain factions have to go to Jack, unit, or units and solos that are pretty much auto-includes? Thanks in advance, X. Now, the number of models that a gamer might have, be them an average gamer, as he puts it, or a tournament player, really, I think would work out to be about the same. Your average gamer, especially if he's newer, might own fewer models because, the person is just into the hobby. Come on, stay open. Stay. Okay. Hey, now she's quiet too. So they might have fewer models there, but at the same time, the tournament player might have fewer models as well, as they're only going to get what's competitive and they're only going to get their tournament lists, and then they're happy with that. Meanwhile, you might say that, a new gamer, well then in comparison, just buy up whatever they think is cool, but at the same time, a competitive gamer might buy up a whole bunch of stuff so that they have options. So I think from that comparison to either being your average gamer or your tournament player, that alone probably isn't going to have a significant difference in the number of models you have. It's more going to, because especially with people, competitive gamers who are onto, say, like their second army type thing, they're trying to watch the money, and they know that, hey, I bought this and it didn't work out for me, so in this faction I'm going to only buy the net list or whatever. So all these things really balance itself out, I believe. But I think it just more comes to whether the gamer is more in it for like the completionist thing, or whether, what really is their intention in the game. For me, I own like all of Signar. It doesn't mean like I use it all the time or anything like that. But for me, I just want to own all of Signar. I want to have all the options, whether I'm having her for fun game or whether I'm going for the throat. I just want to have the options there, and I want to try out everything, because I'm one of those guys who doesn't always just say like, oh, the internet says to do this, all right, let's do it. I like to test these things out for myself. I like to make my own lists, and unless you buy them and try them out, I guess you can always proxy, you just won't know. So that's why I have all the McEverythings over there. The second part of the questions there is, do you feel that certain factions have to have a go-to Jack units, blah, blah, blah? Yes, definitely the units that are well-rounded, like say like Bane Knights or Bane Thralls, right? Those are like a well-rounded unit that have a great defense, hit like a ton of bricks. So these stupid lids keep on closing on me. So they're a pretty good to-go-to thing for cricks. They also love raiders because they're just damn fast and awesome. You know, Signar has their to-go things with gun mages and stuff. So there's definitely the more popular choices. And again, I think that kind of comes into the realm where once something is deemed popular and gets put onto the internet, then of course people will go to them more. So that just perpetuates it even more. But certainly there are things like that where factions have is like, oh, these are the popular choices to take. And a lot of times they're also the ones that do their job with the minimal, you know, thought having to be put into it, like gun mages, right? They're awesome. You just go and you do your thing. They're well-rounded. They cover a lot of situations, but as well, you're pretty much on autopilots, right? They have a super long range, so positioning isn't that big of a deal. You just basically roll dice as you shoot things, as opposed to long gunners, which are also really awesome, but need to take some time to get the right positioning. You can't really move. Well, you can move and shoot, but if you move, you're not double tapping. So it takes a little bit more pre-thought of exactly where you want to have the unit. So I still feel that long gunners are an amazing unit, but people will go to gun mages more because they're just a simpler unit to use. So I'm not saying that they're, you know, bad gamers or anything like that. But I mean, clearly, if you can use something and it's just a lot easier to use, they'll go to that first. I mean, it was the same thing in fantasy, right? I could be dancing around and I could do all this fast cab and blah, blah, blah. Or I can just take a horde of Savage Orc Biggins and just kill the everything. So you'll see that in every game, really. We gamers are lazy folk. Especially when you're going to tournaments and you have to play multiple games. If you can have games that are a little bit easier on your brain, you know, you have a competitive advantage there too, as opposed to the guy that has to think out every single turn and every single move and, you know, get completely worn out by the, you know, lunchtime type thing, right? So that's his first question there. Then we have, hey, the Sustainable Center put something in here. That's awesome. If I jump in, I'm doing circles since I do remember a bit from when I played, so not going in completely blind. I want to run E-Balder and Bradigus, planning to do a tier 4 list with Epic Balder, much like the one your opponent ran recently. But thoughts on complementing Bradigus's lists in tournament play would be helpful. Sure. Okay, first off, the advantage of running both Bradigus and Epic Balder is that they both use the same stuff. So if you're looking to save money and go for easy transport, going with two casters that are all about the constructs, that's a good way to go, right? I mean, pretty much between the two lists, there will be very few different models you would need going between them. I mean, Bradigus would have an extra unit of stones, and then it really depends on from there what you're really going for. But that can be straight up a very great reason to be going for those two. However, the reason why their lists would be almost the same is because they go for basically the same thing. Now, they don't really. Epic Balder, he's more about the tanky, high armor, I got a wall here as well type thing. And I'm going to slowly grind you out type of play. A lot like Trolls, actually. Meanwhile, Bradigus is all about, hey, I'm going to teleport across the world with synergy, and I'm going to kill you. I can still grind and do all that stuff, not as well as Balder, but I can do that. But really, I'm wanting to use the most out of my feet and out of the 3 stones to really jump around, be mobile, and kill basically whatever I want. So they are a bit different, but at the same time, like I said, very, very similar. And because of that, you won't be having a good spread of covering all the different situations. And so that will be a downfall in your tournament pairing. So probably, and what a lot of players have been doing so far with their Bradigus is they've been pairing them with Kruger. And the reason for doing so is that, you know, whenever you have somebody that's going to be dealing with Bradigus and trying to take that infantry that's going to hit really hard and blah, 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 and has this whole game about how they're going to keep their caster safe, play defensively, and then make sure to hit those constructs as hard as they can to take them out. Well, then all of a sudden you run into Kruger, and he says, oh, yeah, you decide to do some shooting? Nope, storm wall, dispel. You know, you're going to be a little bit defensive. Okay, feet, push you away. I win on scenario. So, you know, you definitely have a big advantage by going with someone who's plays quite a bit differently. So I'd be looking into that. But again, I know for the Sustainable Center that he is going to be probably playing on a budget, and as we all usually are. And so that whole fact, like I started with, about how you save that money going with the same models could play a bigger factor as opposed to making sure that you cover all your bases competitively. So there is that. I'm going to jump back, see if anyone's saying anything. We got a couple of viewers. Again, if you guys have anything you want me to talk about, just post them up. There's a couple of replies to this one here saying, I agree, where they want to know more about Bradigus. John Telby saying, a Bradigusode would be good. And then also War Report saying, I want to hear more about Bradigus too. Yeah, we could talk more about Bradigus. He's starting to piss me off. Not because of Bradigus and he's tough and blah, 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 but because people are freaking out about Bradigus. And, you know, when you see the posts about what are we going to do about Bradigus, you know, let's go and try and plan things out. You know, there was lots of that. And it was to the point that some people, whenever you'd post up a let's talk about Bradigus thing, they'd be the little snarky type of people that say, oh, we'll go back to the last 3 posts where we talk about Bradigus. You know, not being very constructive at all. And then yet it seems that now that people are not talking so much about how to beat Bradigus, you are getting chicken littled all over the place. You know, all these people going, oh my God, Bradigus is the best thing ever. You know, it's totally broken. Privateer Press is going the way of Games Workshop. They've lost total control, blah, 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 blah. You know, you might as well play Bradigus because they're just going to win every time if they don't get nerfed. It's like, geez, people, you know, try and come up with something here. You know, use your own thinking, use your own tactics. I mean, honestly, and I mean, like, one of the guys today linked up a comment where some of these top players, and I don't want to be pointing any names out or anything like that, but they were basically talking about how broken Bradigus was and how he definitely needs to be nerfed, and that if he's not nerfed, it's going to be just dominating the, you know, all the tournaments throughout the year and blah, 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 blah. And it's just, oh, this type of idiocy this perpetuates, because this has happened time and time again, where some crazy caster comes out and then everyone's saying the sky is falling, the sky is falling, and then a little while later people just start working on, like, okay, this guy's good, he's a real big worry, maybe I should start planning for him and having some idea of what I'm going to do if I ever face him. And they do, and then all of a sudden that caster starts working itself out. I mean, it's one of the things that I love about War Machine is the counter meta. I mean, you can have something in War Machine that is completely crazy and super strong and all the rest of it. However, then everyone is going to start playing against it, right? And planning for it. And you got this a lot more than if you did in the other games, like say in fantasy, because I mean in fantasy there's a bit you could do about stuff, but there's ways around it, right? You couldn't really, I mean, there's so many different examples. It's hard to actually put this in there. But let's say warlocks, right? If you're really worried about warlocks, these fast cav, they're going around, you could be saying, okay, I'm going to start taking more shooting and blah, 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 blah. But it wasn't really a straight up counter, right? There's a lot of things they could do just to take out that shooting really quickly, or go for those war machines quickly, or stop whatever spell you're planning to do. Whereas War Machine, there's so many options that you can really put in a hard counter to something. So that if someone is dead set, like, oh, I'm going to use Bradigus because he's super #1 broken, well, go ahead. I have my counter to that. So the more that people do that, then the more Bradigus players lose, the less we see Bradigus, and the more they move on to the next shiny thing, right? So, you know, we saw this with Epic Morvana. We're like, oh my God, she's so broken. What is GW thinking? You know, they've never produced something so broken since blah, 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 blah. And now it's happening here again with Bradigus. And, oh man, does it just piss me off, and people don't even try to think tactically around it. Now, something that is making this one even more extreme is that in the past, some of the people have like, oh yeah, this is a #1 caster, and you know, top tier. They're always talking about tiers in War Machine. But now there are some, like the one that I was talking about today, it was talking about how this Bradigus was up and above. Like there's never been a caster this broken. And it's just, holy crow, calm down. So with that, let's talk a little bit about Bradigus. I'm just going to make sure, Alt tab. And we'll talk about some of the things that Bradigus brings to the table, and some of the things you should be looking at in order to counter this. So Bradigus, what's so crazy about this guy? Well, for starters, there's synergy. So he has synergy. It means that every single time that you hit, you're going to be increasing the battle group strength and their mat, meaning that once you start really getting this thing going, it really gets around. Like if you have any high defense or high armor, synergy can be the answer to both these things. You just start with some other activations first, build up that synergy chain, and then all of a sudden when you need to be doing the attacks against whatever has the high defense or the high armor or both, like a caster, you've already got it so that you're, say, +5 or +7 or whatever on your rolls, so that you have no problem cranking these things. For example, I keep on hearing about how, like, you know, you get Bradigus to the caster and he's behind a wall and blah, 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 but it doesn't matter because you just go and your synergy is so high that you can still hit these things with no problem whatsoever. So, you know, there's part one of that whole Bradigus situation. Now, another one is the whole idea where he has a spell where his whole battle group basically turns into a null magic zone. So if you're around his battle group there, you just can't cast spells. And that's a real tough one for some casters. I mean, normally you'd think guys like Butcher 3 would just go up and slaughter all these guys, no problem. But when you can't cast Flashing Blade, that's kind of a problem. So anything that's based off magic that's going to be up close, they just shut down. So that's a big thing you have to keep in mind there. And if anything, it's a big thing that keeps Bradigus alive. Now, while we're talking about keeping Bradigus alive, another component to this is Flush to Clay. It'd be nice. I mean, one of the problems with Bradigus is that he's on a large base. So hiding this guy is very, very difficult. However, if you cast the Animus Flesh to Clay, then all of a sudden you are having one less dice of damage being rolled against you from range attacks. So range attacks all of a sudden have a really hard time hurting you, and that can just stop an assassination right there. I mean, normally if you get within Kane 2 is saying, all right, you know, take her off because it's game over. But if you have Flesh to Clay up, well, now it's a whole different story. So that's a really big part of him. Now, another part of that as well, and keeping him alive and all the rest of it, is going to be the idea of how he has the Sentry Stones. And now we're going to get more to the tier, because really, when Bradigus first came out, people were saying he's garbage, you know, like, oh, this guy's nothing, what a disappointment, we don't want to, you know, he's not going to do anything, what a waste of a caster. And then his tier list came out. Now, what the tier list added was, first of all, that you can get 3 sets of stones. Now, the sets of stones are usually what makes Circle very, very good. They get to port things around, saving Fury so that they don't need to charge. They get to port things around so that you have further threat ranges, and you get to port things around so that, oh, you think you have 3 lines of defense in the way? No, I'm just going to jump over all that stuff and get straight to your caster. So that can be a real hard thing to deal with. And all of a sudden, if you have 3 sets of stones, I mean, there's just a whole bunch more options you have. Plus, you can always have 1 set of stones, teleport another set of stones, and then all of a sudden your threat range gets even further. Especially when you have a guy like Bradigus, where his feat gets to move your battle group, and you can get right up there in their grill. And again, if that synergy chain is up high enough, well, stuff is going to die. Now, we started this little thing off here by talking about the Sentry Stones and keeping Bradigus alive. Well, that's another part of it. Normally, the Sentry Stones is a stone with stealth that makes these little mannequin guys. And what they do is they can go up and they can do sprays and stuff like this. But the real good thing they can do is go up and make a forest. And all of a sudden, if you have this forest in the way, well, you can't shoot Bradigus because you can't see through the forest unless you're Legion or something funky like that. So that's really powerful. As well, as part of the tier, these Sentry Stones start with these, I can't even remember the type of tokens they have, but they start with them. So it's really easy for them to move up, make those clouds, and then make more mannequins so that they can repeat the process basically over and over again. So this whole blocking line of sight thing is a really big deal. So there's that part. Whoa, whoa. Now, here's another part that's kind of a big deal, and that's the whole idea that Bradigus has beatback on his weapon. So even if it looks like you have your caster completely safe and covered, well, you got good old Bradigus coming in here, double porting or triple porting in. He can feat to get even closer. He has reach. He has beatback, and he can get through a lot of defenses. It actually reminds me a lot of Butcher 3, where your normal defenses are like, oh, I'll just put this line of defense in the way, and then you can't get to my caster. And then all of a sudden, when he's pulling things in and, you know, getting to energize her up more and pull more things in and blah, 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 you know, he just breaks through your defenses like nothing. And this is kind of what you're getting here from Bradigus in a way as well. So kind of a deal there as well. Now, with all this and all this talk of doom and gloom and all the rest of it, well, what's the bright side? How do I deal with Bradigus? Well, first of all, you have to look to his strengths. So if his strengths are the stones, you got to kind of ask yourself, well, aren't stones always kind of a deal for Circle? And they are. You always have to deal with the stones, or typically there's 2 sets, one being stealth and you know, one being normal. And so you can do your best to try and kill one, and that's really the biggest thing you have to do against Circle is try and kill those stones. Well, the nice thing about going into the tier here is that he can't take the UA. So that means that the stones won't be stealthed. Now, there is another part to this, which is the Watchers, which is the little light that's there that's going to have shield guard, keeping the shots off. So you either have to have a lot of shots or you have to do this in combat. But really, a large part, I mean, if you think of the difference, right? We said all these things that why Bradigus can do this and this and this and this, But keep in mind that before the tier, everyone was saying like, oh, wow, he's not that good. He's not really worth it. And so to really crack Bradigus, you have to say, well, what was different between him and his tier? Well, we already said about how in the tier, the Sentry Stones will get more of those tokens so they can keep up those forests. They also get another Watcher for free, which will really help with the shield guards and getting synergy going and stuff like that. But it's also the third set of stones. And so what your strategy really has to be when you're facing Bradigus is how to solve those stones. Because once you take those stones away, wow, it all falls apart. And it really is, his tier is all designed around trying to keep those stones alive. Now, some Legion players can see through the clouds, but then they get shield guarded, so you'd have to have lots of shooting. Or I know one of the local players has, not given up, put some thought into it, and actually went to Epic Thagrosh. Epic Thagrosh has a feat where you get to move up and make an extra attack and all these nice things. And what he can do with that is on the feet, rush up there and make sure that you take out the stones. And once you do that, I mean, they're not that crazy. You don't need to take out the whole unit. Once you destroy one from every grouping, then they can't teleport anymore. I mean, usually it just takes one swipe from a heavy and it's down already. So it's actually fairly easy to do, especially when you're Epic Thagrosh, because they just get up there, you kill them. And one of the biggest issues with these walls is the fact that they are fairly pillow-fisted. Now, synergy fixes for that, but once you start getting into that spot there where you're in their face and fighting and all that, the problem with that one as well is they don't have a lot of easy things to build up that synergy chain, right? There's not a bunch of weak models for them to pick on. They're really just focusing in with these heavies, which are going in, taking out your stones, and then forcing you to deal with them. And sure, you can go up there with a bunch of Watchers and start attacking them, but then you're taking up all that real estate around them. And one of the disadvantages of walls is they don't have reach. So that's kind of an issue. If we build up our synergy by surrounding you by Watchers, well, I can't really get then the big hitters to you to finish you. And if I get the big hitters to you first, well, then they're pillow-fisted and they can't finish you anyway. So there's one strategy. And again, I mean, there's pluses and minuses to it and all the rest, but it's somebody who said, hey, this is the problem. How am I going to fix it? For my part, some of the things that I looked at is I said, okay, stones. I would love to shoot them down. What can do that? And I can see through with some things like Kane 2 and stuff like that, but they can't see through forests. Well, what can see through forests? Oh, I have Nis Hunters. Nis Hunters can do it. Well, if I go with Nis Hunters and pop my feet with Siege, those stones become armor 9, and I need to roll 4s to destroy them. You can shield guard a couple, but in the end, I'll destroy them. I have my Mage Sight with Siege so that I can see past your forest with my battle group, and they can take some pot shots at a few things as well, and under the feet at least, do some good damage to some heavies before things even start. And then really we're in a situation where you have now at this point lost your mobility, so I don't need to worry about the big threat of assassination anymore. And at the same time, I have put big damage into your heavies already, and now you're facing a storm wall, and that's not really good times for the Bradigus player. Now again, it's not like you do this and you automatically win or anything, but it's something you do, and it's an answer, right? It puts you on that even footing, and it's all because you had a plan for it. Now I could go, another one I could talk about is my Epic Haley. When you're going up there, you pop your feet so that sure, if they use their stones, they can't activate past that. And then you make sure to really get in there, whether it's with storm walls or forge guard or whatever, and make sure you just beat the crap out of them on that turn. If nothing else, you have to take out those stones. And again, it's not like you have to take out every single goddamn stone. You have to take out one from every grouping, and you don't even always have to take out all 3 sets. You know, it's not like if you don't do that, you're screwed. If you go in there and you destroy 2 stones, that's it. Then all of a sudden they're in a little bit of an issue there where they just can't do all the teleports that they want. They can do 1 port, but then that really tells you where they're going. Who is in those stones? Okay, that model, and then that model can move 8 inches. And it's a lot easier to know where to defend and to anticipate what moves are available to them, as opposed to if there's 3 stones up, there's tons of different options that they have. I'm going to pop over here, and there's Ryan Winter saying, everyone poo-poos Constance Blaze, but do you think she could be a viable opinion against Bradigus with her Banishing Ward and a couple Arc Nodes to strip synergy off Bradigus, but then have ADR to switch in a more normal list when not facing Bradigus? So stripping synergy off of Bradigus isn't really the thing that you want to be trying to do. Like, okay, it's a good thing to do because it forced him to cast a Fury again, waste resources and blah, 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 blah. However, realize on his turn, a lot of times he just has to kind of like get that Fury out anyway. So he's just going to recast it. Now, of course, if Bradigus himself was going for the assassination and then he recast synergy, okay, that's going to take his part of the assassination off the table. However, he could always try and port the Guardians and stuff like this. So cracking, I mean, it's a good thing to do. I'm not saying don't try and take off synergy, but it doesn't seem like that's a clutch, a key part to his list. That key part to his list is those 3 sets of stones. You take that apart, and then all of a sudden he's a lot easier to manage. Now, otherwise, Constance Blaze, what's she going to be really doing? If you're trying to grind against, okay, Banishing Ward is interesting because it stops some of the magical shots, so that can be okay. I mean, you have it already on all your Precursor Knights, and then she can put on whatever other unit you want as well. She has her Transference, whatever it's called, where if you're already in there and you're grinding against them, let's say you took out some stones already, then all of a sudden you can be helping boosting attacks even if you're not getting the charge. So Constance Blaze could be getting that too. But remember, you also have to be kind of building these lists so that they can be handling Bradigus and Kruger too. Like in the examples I gave, if I see Kruger 2 and Bradigus, my siege idea can work against Bradigus, and if I face Kruger 2, I have a storm wall that can be not pushed by his feet. That really makes it a lot harder for Kruger 2 to go, haha, I win by scenario. So I kind of have both ways going there. Whereas Constance, with all of her infantry, really would not want to be seeing Kruger. You wouldn't have to worry about TKs because of Banishing Ward, and that's good. But still, that feat would be kind of an issue. Yeah, I mean, it's just some of those things where, I mean, I'm not going to tell you no, because my whole rant here is about how you should be trying this. And this is great. You know, Ryan Winter, this is just what we need to see, is people coming up with ideas. And then I guess the next step is actually just getting out there and trying them and doing them. Constance Blaze, her real issue probably normally will be that she's not doesn't have a lot of answers to some of the other questions. I like taking casters that have more answers to more different casters. But again, I mean, whatever you pair her with, you have the whole dark horse factor, all these things. You know, try it out and see where that goes. There are certain things there that could really work. Remember, if you're trying to strip off that spell, you'd have to make sure you do it more than 5 inches, I think it is, from his battle group. Otherwise, you just can't cast those spells. So that's kind of an issue. But yeah, give it a try, and definitely you have to be going for a lot of hard-hitting things. So make sure you have in those Precursor Knights with the UA so that they can really do those big hits. Make sure that... Oh, would Bless get past that? Because they have Blessed Weapons. Would that get past Stone Form? Is that a spell? I'd have to go in to see the exact definition. But anyway, there's potential. You know, play around with it. Make sure you have outs for rough terrain because they're going to be shooting rifts around to slow you down. So make sure you have that planned out. But yeah, go in there and try that. Okay, moving on here. Stephen Walker says, I just got stomped by Epic Xerxes. Yeah, I mean, we can talk more about Bradigus later, but that's pretty much, I think I've covered Bradigus pretty good for now. If you guys have more questions, you could post them up, but I could rant about Bradigus forever, and you guys don't all want to just hear about Bradigus. I got stomped by Epic Xerxes. What, if anything, is his weakness? So for those who don't know who Epic Xerxes is, he's that big, now he's running on a rhino and all the rest of it. He's the battle engine warcaster, and he packs a real wallop. And he likes doing things like the Archidon, where he can go up and hit and then, you know, sprint away type thing. So he can do a lot of damage. Now, of course, what's the weakness of Epic Xerxes? It's going to be that base. You know, he is on that huge base, and that means that it's really hard to try and hide the guy. So go and try and shoot him up. You know, there's ways that you can try and protect from shooting, but really, if you have dedicated shooting, that's not what he wants to see. Gorman just can't miss the guy. He just can't, you know. It can scatter 6 inches, I think. I don't know, maybe 6 inches would go off him, but still, you know, like, you can shut this guy up with black oil really easily. It's really easy to get a lot of models on him in combat if you want to kill him that way. Another thing that really hinders him is the whole terrain thing. So he's a battle engine. He basically has Pathfinder and goes where he wants, but he can't stop on linear terrain. It's just like dealing with Colossals, and what you can start doing there is use your terrain to your advantage. If there's a wall, oh boy, can you use that? Awesome. Now, he has reach, but if you're more than 2 inches from the front of the wall, he just can't hit you. And if you take up all the real estate on the other side, he just can't get over to the other side. And that really can be very frustrating for him. So really use that terrain to your advantage. Use models to bog him down and get in the way. You know, that size is really his biggest detriment. And of course, there's some models they can be having in there to be protecting him from shooting. Just make sure you can always target those guys first if you really want to go for the shooting assassination, if they are going for that. Plus, like all casters, if you destroy the beast, he starts to really run out of steam, because warlocks, they kind of need that fury battery. He also has that weird feat right now where his control range is basically everything. So technically, if you have 2 games going on side by side, when one pops his feet, it's controlling the table beside, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a TO of any worth that would actually let that go. Surprised that hasn't been... Well, I mean, it's one of these things probably shouldn't even need to be errated. But anyway, take advantage of that base size, and, you know, you'll feel cheesy, right? The first time you do that, and you say, well, man, you just can't really get across that wall. Sorry, you can't get to me. But that's the big disadvantage of being on those big bases. And if you don't make them pay that, well, then there really is no disadvantage at all to it. And that's what you're seeing in a lot of these battle engine casters, is that they're, you know, can have a lot of power to them. But the problem is that their mobility, you know, they're really limited in where they can go. As well, because they have to pre-deploy, they have to kind of give away their game plan as well, right? You know what part of the board they're planning to be in. Once they're there, you can kind of plot out where you figure they're going to go. And then once you do that, you can see where the terrain is and where you need to try and get to first. So, like I keep saying, do that. Use it to your advantage. Those dynamos coming together. There's lots of different details on them, though. This gold work is going to take forever. And then as soon as I'm done this gold work, it's just going to be done. Bill Ellis, please could you tell me how to paint scales on dragon ogres, as I have no idea and just started my first one. And so he specifies dragon ogres, but this could really apply to anything with any type of scales or chitinous armor or anything like that. And so, you know, for people who play 40K, you can look up tutorials on Tyranids and stuff like that. But really what you want to do is, first of all, pick whatever your main color is going to be for the scale. So maybe it's green, maybe it's black, maybe it's red, whatever. And you're going to want to paint them all that color. Just boom, paint it on. Now, the next thing you're going to do is kind of just like the tips. So if this part here is a scale going down, I've painted the whole thing green, and then I'll take my white and dry brush. So, you know, get your brush covered with paint and then wipe off pretty much all of it. And then you're just on the edge, you're going to dry brush it and make sure that the streaks are kind of going in. And in fact, you might even want to go and make some distinct ones. You don't want to be like a band going around. You really want to be like you're a feathering finger thing going, and you'll really get that feel. If you go onto the interwebs and Google up scales and take a look at them, you can see that, I mean, you really have that solid color to it, but as the scale leaves away from the body, it pretty much loses that color. I mean, there's other ways you could do it too. You could also, if you're going to something really light, instead of doing white on the sides, you could be doing black instead. You know, you could be doing it that way, but that's really it. You pick your one color, and then if it's a darker color, you put white on the edge for the trim, for the highlight, and if it's a light one, then you do black. And it's one of those things where at first I just couldn't be bothered. I thought it was a waste of my time. But then once I started doing my Tyranids, when I owned some that way, it was like, wow, this is the easiest thing ever. And yeah, we're just going to do this and get it done. And of course, then once I got to Legion and saw their armor, I was like, wow, I could do the same thing, but I'm super lazy. So yeah, that's not really a good example. Don't be like me. I'm a lazy painter, but maybe that's because I already painted an entire Tyranid army like that. I'm like the biggest hypocrite with that stuff. You know, I'm telling you, do this, do that, do that. I'm so damn lazy. So lazy. Next one here. Also, any advice for taking on always strike first high elves? Oh, sneaking in that fantasy. Okay, you got a couple of options. One, so always strike first. That means when you get there, they're always striking first. And you're going to be getting the crap kicked out of you. So, option one, shoot them. You know, take that bonus away. If you're going to get they are going to get the bonus when you're in combat, don't get in combat. Shoot them up. Option number two, swarm. Doesn't matter who hits first if they're not reducing attacks. You know, if you get in there with enough models, sure, they're going first. They might even be getting rerolls, but that's not really changing anything in the fight because you're still going to get the same number of models to fight back. Next thing, avoid. You know, a lot of times high elves with their big units like this like to go Death Star. You know, take a couple of cheap fast cav units or a couple of really cheap characters and just redirect them away. And then meanwhile, while you're redirecting that always strike first horde, you're going after the rest of their stuff, or you're just still shooting them up until they're at a level where you can actually handle them. So there you go, some fantasy snuck in. Benjamin, oh God, Wake Zorik. I'm so bad at these. I should have like a little translator. Benjamin Wizorik. Maybe that's close. Hey, Mr. Malorian, I would appreciate it if you could do some new videos about orc tactics and strategies. Not for nothing, this channel is called the Orc Tactical Team. Actually, the channel is Mr. Malorian. But anyway, in the last video about this theme is a really long time ago. Grats from a fellow follower, rather, from Germany. Like I said, the orc theme here is strong. I love them orcs. At some point, I plan to convert up a Troll Blood army to look like orcs, but it is the Mr. Malorian channel, not the Orc Tactical Team. And the reason why I haven't been doing those is because I haven't been playing. And I haven't been really keeping totally up to date with all the rule changes. So it would be like a big hypocrisy of me to try and go through and say, oh, you should do this and this and this, when I'm not even practicing it. If you want a quick little Orc Tactical Team now, I can say that using the Cane Magic, I got to try that one out in the one game I did do, and taking the Wizarding Hat, which I always love, because Orcs and Goblins can only just take the regular lores, although now they can take Undead as well. All of a sudden, where the Wizarding Hat before just give you 2 random spells, and you have to kind of hope you got something good, now you know you're getting the entire lore. And so now I'm a really big proponent of the idea of having a Wizarding Hat in a lot of your armies. I mean, as long as you're looking at a good size list, throw that thing in. You know, you want to have that character that's going to be safe in the back anyway. Might as well throw a Wizarding Hat on the guy and be a lore master of whatever lore you want. So there you go. There's your Orc Tactical Team quota for 2015. What can I say, guys? I'm into War Machine right now. And that was this one here. Flame Knight Dragon. I have 2 questions. What Warcaster do you think is best at running Stormblades, Stormclad, and Firefly? As well, have you ever looked into playing the Iron Kingdoms RPG? I'll get to that second one first. I have not really actively gone after that. It doesn't really interest me. I've played D&D, I've played Pathfinder, and so I could do the game Iron Kingdoms, which is pretty much the same thing, but just with a War Machine theme. But really, the guys who would be playing that with me are the other War Machine players. And honestly, if we're together, I would rather be playing War Machine, right? Maybe it's kind of a silly thing, but honestly, you know, if I had one of my Pathfinder buddies call me up and say, hey, man, we're going to do Pathfinder, I'd be like, okay, awesome. But if one of my War Machine buddies calls me up and say, hey, we want to do a Iron Kingdoms RPG, I'd be like, do you just want to play a 50-point game? You know, like, we can play that game and then make up some fluff after. You know, I don't know. It's just, to me, the big thing for me about War Machine is more the game than the fluff. So if I want to do something for fluff, okay, I'll do Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe it's a silly reason, but it's the way my brain works. So otherwise, who runs Stormblades best? Epic Striker. They love his feat where Rolling Thunder makes them move up 3 inches and attack again. Has to be friendly faction models, and so that means no mercenaries unless you're Murdocking it up. And you know, they hit that extra attack with that power 15 basically does a lot of work. As well, they can be a little bit slow. However, again, with that feat, you can just run them up, pop the feat, and then all of a sudden they get a pretty big threat from that. While we're talking about, you know, getting up the board and slow and stuff, you also have his whole thing where all the Stormblades get advanced move. So it's basically advanced deploy. You know, like, it's 1 inch less than what advanced deploy would be. But, I mean, that alone can be a big thing going in their favor as well. And as well, you want to keep those guys alive. And he has deflection, so that brings their armor up to 17, which can turn away, I mean, half of the light missile fire coming their way. So Stormblades go with Striker 2. I gotta clean up my brush because it's getting foggy. Next part, the Stormclad. Stormclad, I would say, is best under Cray. Cray can send that thing downtown, and that thing just kicks ass. You put on it, you know, mobility, and it just gets in there and kills all the things. It is pretty damn good. I mean, it's its movement is doubled. So, I mean, he's adding 5 threat to you right there. He can be giving it Pathfinder. Yeah, this thing goes. Close second would be Striker 3, because then he gets Assault, so he's shooting when he's coming in. And then with Escort, he's also making it a little bit faster as well. And he can get Iron Aggression. So if you are going after something that is high defense, that Iron Aggression can really help him smash up. But I find it's better on the Cray list, because that extreme threat is what you really need to get out of the guy. And Firefly. Firefly is going to be Nemo 2. I believe it's also part of his tier as well. Not 100% on that, but Nemo 2, his awesome thing is that he makes your Stormcallers even better. And what your Stormcallers want to have is to be able to triangulate. And so if you can run up this Firefly, they can start triangulating off of it, and stuff is going to die, man. Stuff is going to die. POW 12, Skill 9 to get this stuff off. It is pretty awesome. I mean, really, the Fireflies do nothing but just run up the board. That's all they do is run up the board, try and get behind the lines, and then all of a sudden, each one of these 1-point models, and you can be having lots of them because in Nemo 2, you can be taking extra with the tier. They could each be doing 3 POW 12 attacks. And they're not worrying about needing to roll the hit. You just have to roll a 9 or less, and bam, this thing gets zapped. It gets disrupted. It's just, yeah, that's where you're going to be running the Fireflies. I actually did paint up 2, planning to really get into the whole Nemo tier thing. But at the same time, that's when Dynamo came out. And so I've been kind of waiting now to paint this guy. And now that he's painted, you can start seeing the Fireflies come out too. Now, Dynamo is more a Nemo 1 or a Nemo 3 type of guy, but it's not like he doesn't like Nemo 2. This guy's coming together. I'm liking the look. You guys probably can't see it very well, but he's coming together. I just know that, I mean, when I finally get done all of this gold, then it'll be a little bit of the dark silver, a little bit of cleanup, and this guy will be done. Oh, and I botched this up. Ugh. There's like a tiny little gem thing here, and so I dotted it red already, and then I tried doing the gold on the outside, and then I, like I said, botched it up, and now the whole thing's gold on the inside, so meh. Actually, one of the things I was wanting to say is that after I'm done doing Dynamo, I'm actually planning to take a little break from painting War Machine, because I want to be painting up Shadows over Camelot. I've been talking about doing that for a while, and now I have enough friends that love it that I want to take that next step and paint them up. So next week, mark my words, I'll be probably painting the catapults or something like that. So Dynamo, you will probably be the last one for a little bit. That stuff won't take me very long to paint, though. Maybe, I mean, depends. If I only do on the Mondays, probably a couple of months. Holy crow, we're already like at an hour. I'm not even done the gold. So much for finishing this guy in the hour. Let's go back, see if you have any questions here. We have one here from the Apathetic Fish saying, "Hey, Mr. Malorian, I've been watching your Paintisodes for a while now, and it's very entertaining. Thanks. To listen while painting. Can I ask you about fantasy? Hey, others have. I have a collection of wood elves in boxes. I heard you once rant about wood elves. Are they broken? Are they cheap? What's the legit way for me to grow my collection without upsetting people? How are the waters on the Warhammer fantasy scene? Is it still a good game?" Wood elves do not want to fight. They want to run around. And so what you really want to do is take a bunch of Glade Riders and really just run around and shoot. Like when I made a list, it was basically Glade Riders. Lots and lots of Glade Riders. So what do you buy? Glade Riders. And you're just going to run around, pick out your targets, get those points, get up 100 points, and win. Is it cheap? I mean, what's more cheap? Running around and picking out the small targets, or just taking a big Death Star or whatever, right? Like really, everyone's trying to win their own way. And so if you are not planning to be like, we got to do what we do to win, and you want to play it more for fun, play it for fun. Take whatever models you want. So really, you have to decide yourself how you want to play and what you want to get from the hobby. If you want to go ultra competitive, get Glade Riders. If you want to go and have a fun game of fantasy, have a fun game of fantasy. What is the status of Warhammer Fantasy? Turmoil, absolute turmoil. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. Rules are getting changed all the time. Fluff is getting changed all the time. Rumors about ninth, rumors being canceled about ninth, new rumors about ninth, and you never know what's going to go on. Groosh Monkey, my brother, is saying, hey, jerkwad. Brother. But, yeah, that's the thing about ninth. And until ninth drops and we know what's going on, then things will settle out. As it is right now, it's just this whole thing of the not knowing. You know, maybe ninth, we hear things like Lizardmen just aren't even an army anymore. Oh, what's this? You own Lizardmen? Sorry, they're useless now. So if that's going to be true, that's really bad. If it's going to all circle bases, that's bad. I love War Machine. That's really what it comes down to. All right. Last one from the previous videos from, oh man, I'm sure this music, here we go, music list Neurable. Okay. How, I'm sure there's like some combination there I'm missing. But anyway, how best to make a troll tournament viable army with would be nice. Specifically using Krail warriors and other single wound infantry in zone clearing lists, and warders and champs in a zone holding list. Oh, and maybe an overview of how to start circle and whenever they prefer beasts and whether they prefer beasts or infantry. Well, let's start with the one that's a lot easier. How do you start circle? The 2-player box is a nice way of doing it. You know, you get a lot of stuff for pretty cheap. Now that you're seeing this stuff with Bradigus, you might want to just go in and buy wolves and stuff like that. But as far as whether they like beasts or infantry more, they're kind of more, I mean, okay, all of Hordes likes beasts. That's just a thing that they are. That's the way that your casters get fury. So all Horde armies are going to be based off of their beasts. However, some armies, like Legion, really don't take much infantry whatsoever. They'll take a bunch of beasts, some support models, maybe 1 unit, and that's it. Circle could have more units. Take, for example, if you're running Epic Morvana, you could be seeing tons of different units that she is going to be bringing back. So they're kind of more middle ground. I put them around the same thing as like Scorn, where there will be a lot of beasts, but infantry will be playing a part as well. Now, as far as an overview of how to start Circle, Circle, just to get you prepared for it, is one of these armies where you don't just go in and see immediate success. Like we've been talking about with the shifting stones, it takes a while to learn all the different possibilities and get your positioning right and all the rest of it. And so it's one of those things where it's a slow grow for getting better with the army. So be prepared with that with Circle. You're going to have to kind of decide probably in the beginning whether you like the constructs better or whether you like the wolves better, the werewolves. And then once you know that, you can probably decide then what caster you want to start with. You know, I would not really be looking first to like, oh, what's the best list and going that way. I would say decide what type of things you like the look of best first and then start learning that way. Remember, if you pick a caster that turns out to be not good, new casters are cheap. You know, that's not what's going to hold you back. And whether you go with the werewolves or the wolves, the constructs, you know, there's a lot of casters that can use either. I mean, it's really just how you start learning anyone, right? Get in there, get your models, find a press ganger or a group, and just start learning the army. And especially if you can find someone that's like the local Circle player, Watch them. See what they're doing for their positioning. Seeing what spells are casting on what units. You know, learn by example. That's probably your best way to go. Get in there, get in there. I'm almost done the gold. I'm guessing, I'm already at an hour, so I'm pretty much just going to finish the gold, and that's probably where we're going to be at for today, but we'll see. So anyway, that's the questions from last time. Now I'm going to be going to see what other questions are posted on this video. So give me just half a second as I go and bring that up. Again, I got 10 viewers here, so I mean, if you guys keep on having questions, go ahead and ask, right? I'll get to them. There's also, it's weird. I know there's more questions. I remember more of them being asked, but for some reason, they didn't all show up within the video. So here, I have to go to live events. Come on, you. People want their questions answered. I have to hurry. They're getting pissed off. Grush Monkey is going to make fun of me again. My brother's had so many different names over the years. Senior Car Gauge, Borg 9, Camrat Ranch. Oh, Flame Knight Dragon saying makes sense, even more so with the newer Iron Kingdoms RPG, playing a lot more like the war game. Yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. It's the same thing with the card game, right? When I got told that, hey, you know, Privateer Press is coming out with this card game called, you know, what is it even called now? I probably just said it. I forget. But anyway, they have the card, High Command. I just had no interest in it. You know, it's just, again, why try and play a game that emulates a game you love? Why not just play that game you actually love? So, I mean, maybe there's some people out there that love the War Machine fiction, but they don't like painting models and making models. So to them, sure, yeah, the deck card, a card game, sure, that's the best thing for them. But for me, I would rather just stick here with my models and go with that. So no role playing for me, no card game. I mean, there's enough cards in the game already, right? Man, one of the other things that my buddy came over on the weekend here and showed me Marvel Dice Masters. It's an interesting game, and it's really fast and easy to learn. But one of the things I noticed right away is like, this is a lot like Magic the Gathering. And sure enough, it's made by the same people that make Magic the Gathering. And man, I mean, the more I looked into this, it's like, it's not a game that you just kind of pick up and like, there you go, I'm good to play. It's more so one of these games where you are going to buy in the initial deck and dice, and then you're buying more dice. And that's the worst thing about this, is that it's just dice, right? Like, that's all it is. And so I'd find it for myself really hard to justify. You know, it was a great game and all the rest of it, but for me to be spending all this money on these blister packs, where it's like, I hope I get the right dice I want, you know, it's just like, oh, it seems so wrong. And I don't know what the big difference is, because I used to do that for cards. I never played Magic the Gathering. I watched enough of it, but I was more into other ones called like Wildstorm and stuff like that. And man, I spent hundreds of dollars trying to get those rare cards. And I think it's from that I just learned my lesson. You know, it's just not worth it. I mean, that's the beauty of War Machine again, where if I go in there and I buy Dynamo, I get Dynamo. You know, that's just what I get. I don't have to go through and buy a bajillion blind boxes and like, oh, damn, it's a 6th Hunter or whatever. You know, as I know what I'm getting. I'm sure there's going to be someone piping up saying that in those car games, there's always markets like eBay or whatever where you can buy whatever ones you want. But, man, I just want to buy my toys and know what my toys are. Is that so wrong? Am I asking too much? So we have all the gold on. So hooray, there's something. Another part I'm wondering if I should make gold. I'm not going to, because that part of his arm already has a bajillion gold on it. Let's see how we're doing for viewers. We have a lot of viewers, so oh, Groosh Monkey. What do you think about Bradigus? Yeah, one of the things I learned about my brother is that he is like the ultra troll. So he knows that I'm in this big Bradigus skiff thing. I already talked about Bradigus or Groosh Monkey, so you can go back to that and listen to it. But yeah, there's to put it in a short little thing about Bradigus. Bradigus is good. He is really good, but I don't see him any better than Haley 2 and Gaspy 2 and all these other super casters. You know, Bradigus is cool, but he's not like the dominant thing that's going to break the game forever, right? So there you go. Derek, I swear, people are probably making these usernames just to make me screw them up. Derek Diziobek. Malorian, I have not played War Machine in 8 or so years, but I am interested in getting back into it. I shall have Crick's starter box with the metal models, War Witch de Negra, a Slayer, and 2 Death Ripper Bonejacks and a Defiler Bonejack from like 2007. Are any of these models cards still good? Okay, the models, yes. De Negra, very great caster, well-rounded. She's always being said that she's like the turd polisher, where you could take whatever with her, and because she's just debuffing everything, she makes them awesome. All of Crix loves their arc nodes. The Slayer, that's probably the one where it'll be like the one they'll get the least use, unless you're playing Mortenebra. Then all of a sudden you want like 6 of them. But your cards will not be good. Your cards will be Mark 1, and all of a sudden, like your points will be like in the hundreds or whatever. This is now Mark 2, so you will need to go get new cards, and you can do that right through Privateer Press. They're like 50 cents each, so we're not talking a big investment here, and that's all. But it's a really good start to go with Crix. Is their battle box, great caster. Even the heavy can be used really well if you're going with Mortenebra. So yeah, get in there and learn the game again. I hear all these things where Mark 1 was super broken and like, wow, like we're talking about Bradigus, like Bradigus is crazy. Listen to the stuff that used to be in Mark 1. That was crazy, right? So things are better now, things are balanced, and get in there and have some fun. FH McVeigh, hello, Mr. Malorian. Are you still using the Galleon for your Signar army? What are your thoughts on using it overall? And would you try to use just the Galleon alone rather than pairing it with the Stormwall? He has more here, but just touching on that part there, not so much. I was getting into practicing that, but the real thing that killed it was just the Lilith 2. The Lilith 2 in my meta, I just have to deal with this thing. And the Galleon does not deal with Lilith 2. And it doesn't really deal with a lot of other things I wanted it to either. So it's an interesting thing, but it's also very dangerous. I mean, one of the things that has never happened to me so far is people always say like, oh, why are you having juniors running your colossals? If they just kill the junior, then all of a sudden the whole colossal goes down. Well, that's never happened. I always keep them nice and safe. And the other thing is if you ever kill the Warcaster Junior, the Warcaster just comes back over to the Stormwall and takes control of it. If this ever happens to Gaston, I'm screwed because my Warcaster can't come back and take control of that. So that's a big deal. So that kind of phased it out. I'm still wanting to play with it, but taking it without the Stormwall, possible. But the Stormwall is so good. You know, if I had to pick one or the other, I'm going to go more with the Stormwall. So, yeah. When I do Mercenaries, yeah, I'm going to be using that Galleon. I love it there, right? If I'm doing Magnus 2 or Magnus 1 or whatever, they love the Galleon. But as far as getting a Signar, interesting, but it's even at my risk level where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get into that. Also, do you run into much grief for playing Signars, Haley 2, or is your community fairly open to power casters?